our first stop, our spotlight panel, global, local, which way forward? What happened to brands with global dreams in the year of no travel? What are they doing to prepare for an AC world? Please welcome Weichun Liu, who's the co-founder and executive vice president KKday, who's in the studio with me in Singapore. And dialing in virtually, we have Rohit Kapoor, CEO India and Southeast Asia for Yeoh. We have Catherine So, who's the managing director Asia Pacific from Expedia Group. And we have Nelly Nurmalasari, senior VP of Accommodation for Traveloka. Weichun, please take a seat. How are you?
Good.
It's good to have you in the studio with us and our friends who are dialing in. Hello, everyone. Hello, Jakarta, Hong Kong, and New Delhi. How's everyone?
Hello.
Good. Okay, we can hear you. That's the theme of COVID. We can hear you. Can you hear me? All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to break this conversation into three parts. And part one is what I call the three stages of COVID, right? And in the story of COVID, to me, can be roughly told in three stages. Part one is protect. Part two is resilience. And part three is recovery. So I want to know which part do you think you're each in. And before I do that, we're going to go to an audience poll here because we're going to say, assuming that the road to recovery is as long as the world's longest roadway, which I Googled, and it said that the Pan-American Highway is at 19,000 miles. That's the longest road, and that's about 30,000 kilometers. Let's find out which milestone you think you are at currently. And when we can, I think we should go on that road trip. What do you think, Rachel?
Can't wait.
That's the world's longest road trip. Okay, let's go to the audience and ask them that question, and then we'll wait for their results. So let's go to Weichun first and say, where do you think you are at? Are you at 0 miles or 100 miles or 1,000 miles? Or?
I think I'm optimistic, so I will go with 1,000 miles.
Okay, all right. So you are in that recovery stage.
Definitely on the way.
Rohit, a very special shout out to you in New Delhi. I mean, the news coming out of India is grim. I hope you're well and your family's well. Which part of the story are you at?
I think given where I am in Delhi right now and what's happening, it's very easy to get pessimistic. But we're a global company, and if I look at the global footprint, I'll also say it's about 1,000 because there are many markets recovering at very different paces, and we are seeing progress.
Okay, that's great perspective. Okay, let's go to Catherine. Catherine in Hong Kong. Which part of the story are you at? Okay, let's go to Nelly. Nelly, are you there in Jakarta? Which part
yes,
of the
here.
Okay.
Yes,
which part of the recovery are you at? Oh, there you go,
yeah,
Nelly.
certainly as optimistic as everyone. We're looking at 10,000 miles. I think we see the vaccination rollout, customer getting more confident. We have strong domestic growth. And you mentioned yourself, right? Singapore, Hong Kong travel bubble and all. I think it's quite optimistic story here.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, let's go to the audience polling, and we see that the audience seems to think it's about 1,000 miles as well, as we can see from there. So, roundabout. So pretty optimistic. All right, so I think while we wait for Catherine to answer, we're going to go into part two of our story, which is really DC, right? Oh, Catherine, you're back.
Hello, Siew, I'm back.
Hi. Lei Ho Ma.
Ho ho, thank you.
Good. Which part of the recovery story are you at, you think?
Well, definitely 10,000 miles. Well, the truth is, situation is very different across the regions and market, right? But overall recovery has been tracking healthily for us at Expedia, and I'm also an optimist and on the outlook. So 10,000 miles.
Yeah, I think we all have to be optimists to work in travel right now. Okay, let's go to part two of our story, which is about the great local pivot, right? DC, during COVID, we all had to go local. And Weichun, let's start with you and say KKday is fortunate to have its base in Taiwan, right? And you were telling me that domestic travel has remained robust. 50% of your users are in Taiwan. So how did you manage to convert them from traveling overseas, because Taiwanese are voracious travelers, to kind of staying at home? What did you have to do?
So the domestic travelers are definitely tougher than tourists. They know the local language. They are more knowledgeable about the destination than tourists, right? So the first thing we do is actually revisit our product portfolio, and then we realize, okay, we need to expand to tier two cities, to the places that we didn't visit before. We acquire a new set of suppliers, and then we realize there are a lot of things to do, especially on the technology side. You first have to educate them, like why is instant confirmation important? How do you deal with cancellation during COVID time? How do you manage allowance when when the COVID policy changes on a daily basis, right? So if you have done all that, the customer will come.
Right. So basically trying to find things that beyond what a normal tourist would go, which is
Exactly.
great, right? Because it really allowed you to go into new
Definitely.
layers of
Yeah.
Taiwan for you, right? So you also managed to tap into previously non-existent domestic markets. So you moved to Singapore like a year ago, what a time to be stranded. so, so you really managed to, tap into non-existent domestic markets in Hong Kong and Singapore, right? And so did you apply the same thinking in Taiwan to Singapore and Hong Kong? Is it like universal principles?
Yes. So basically, you need to cover your supplier's technology need. Then you need to think about the value proposition for both suppliers and customers. So in the case of Hong Kong, our businesses are actually way better than, say, pre-COVID level. The reason being that we are able to tap into the new staycation vertical. We have done staycation in every angle possible, right? So it started out with staycation, with spa. Now we're moving to we miss Japan, we miss Thailand. Bring your pet to the hotels. We've pretty much done every angle. So we bring the similar idea to Singapore, right? So now you mentioned we're filming as Fairmont. We actually did the Samsung pajama set, pajama party at Fairmont. So we try every angle, right? And then along the way, you notice there are the verticals or the customer that you were not able to tap before. So previously, we really focused on the millennial, the couples. But now we realize, hey, family, there's a huge demand for family. They travel, they need to find something to do every weekend. So we have been, expanding our customer base as well as product portfolios.
Yeah, I mean, I've realized, covering the industries that tours and activities as a vertical was probably kind of the least affected because you were able to go local, whereas, with airlines and we get into hospitality, that's kind of harder. So Rohit, let's go to you. So before joining Yeoh in December 2018, I read your bio. You were executive director of Max Healthcare for nearly 5 years. So that medical experience must have stood you in good stead during this, during this crisis. Did you tap into your experience with healthcare to get Yeoh through this period? How did that experience help you at this time?
Look, I think one thing we all must admit that whatever be our previous experience, this is a once in a century event, right? So none of us have experienced anything close to this ever in our lives before. So with that humility, the only thing I can say is what we did manage to do was to partner extensively with healthcare companies, with governments, with state governments, for isolation centers, for quarantine centers. Uh, in India and in other markets, we partnered with the tourism ministry to bring out the first set of sanitization guidelines. Right, we covered thousands of hotels with, on how to do sanitization properly. Right, and things changed. Like just imagine in the previous world, anybody cleaning a hotel room in front of you will be seen as a service gap, right?
Yeah.
Whereas when we spoke to consumers, and we did that every week during the last year, and we continue to do so, consumers told us in India that please clean the rooms in front of our eyes. We launched a product called Sanitize Before Your Eyes, right?
Okay.
So I think we brought a lot of that to bear because this is one period in human history where you can be in any vertical, in any industry, but you're connected to healthcare. You've been forced to connect to that.
Absolutely, and so people feel reassured when they actually see people cleaning right now in front of them. So pre-COVID, I mean, Oyo's had a really interesting journey, right? Even pre-COVID, you were already rationalizing your expansion in the wake of the fallout from WeWork and SoftBank, and that was in 2019. And it seems so long ago now. But how has COVID further rationalized your expansion plans in Southeast Asia in particular? Have you had to really, really scale back and then focus in India a bit more?
So look, there are two or three things which I think have worked in our favor. One is that we've really, like they say, when there's a storm in the sea, the best fishermen repair their nets, right? They don't wait for the storm to get over and do nothing, right? So we last year we always did that, but I think in a very accelerated manner we built product and tech more than probably we built in last 4 years altogether, right? And which is impacting every part of consumer and partner experience. That's one. The second is, which is uh, in some sense in these days a blessing for us, is in most markets we are a very local player, right? So for example, even in the major markets in INSEA, which is India, Malaysia, Indonesia, 90% plus of our demand is local. So to that extent, lack of international travel did not impact us so much. Obviously, the demand locally has also gone down. It's not that that
Yeah.
demand is static. And third is I think any kind of external crisis does put enormous focus in what you're really good at and what you really want to do. So there, Europe, INSEA are core markets for us, and within that, Southeast Asia is core. We contributes about 15 odd percent to our business, and we continue to be very, very focused on Southeast Asia as a very core market for us.
Right, so it seems a very common theme. I mean, KKday spent its time also fixing the tech. As you say, the fisherman has to fix the nets. And I'm sure Expedia had to do that too. Catherine, going to you. Expedia, from my perspective, was probably most vulnerable to the stoppage of cross-border travel in Asia, right? So how are you adapting your business for the pretty limited cross-border travel market right now?
Yeah, I would say the past year certainly been a very time for Expedia, and yet domestic travel continues to be the obvious choice for travelers in Asia. We have historically been known as more of an outbound and inbound brand, right? So on one hand, the borders, when borders are closed, it hurts everyone, including Expedia. But on the other hand, we're actually quite encouraged to learn that our relationship with our have actually been very strong. So those who booked with us pre-COVID for outbound travel actually continues to book with us during COVID to travel domestically. And one other fact we learned that because these are high quality customers, they actually travel a lot more than anyone else. So on your question on how we adapt, our focus has definitely been on addressing travelers' needs, and they have changed a lot post-COVID, right? What we have heard from our customers is more than ever, they want to book with someone who can help them through the complexity of travels and to take away the uncertainties where possible. So we've been very focusing energy exactly on that one. For example, with the Expedia brand relaunch that we have just announced recently, we strive to be your travel companion, right? To change from what we used to call ourselves a travel brand to become a traveler's brand.
Yeah,
And
I mean, we will get into that later, but you're talking about, I think, addressing a very important factor right now, which is trust, right? A traveler trust, and that's why you went for the ultimate traveler's companion positioning right now. So now let's move to Nelly. I mean, again, Traveloka, you had a huge domestic base, so I think that's probably helped you in good stead. But tell us how you rethought your accommodation supply for an even bigger and deeper domestic play at this moment. Like, what trends are you seeing in which markets?
Yeah. So I think during COVID, customer preference in choosing accommodation type we observe has shifted slightly beyond a typical staycation. I think mentioned earlier about staying at the clean certified hotel in the same city, but customers also looking for more an outdoorsy type experience, like closer to nature and even more privacy. We already had these types of supplies even before COVID. So we did observe high demand growth from these categories of supply. So I think for us, it's a matter of even expanding our supply base further for this type of private properties.
Yeah, I know that Traveloka also has been also fixing your net So everybody's been fixing their nets, and you've launched payments, you've done buy now, pay later, you've got local services, and I read that you actually have a joint venture to launch digital financial services in Thailand. So, everybody's fixing their nets. But at this point, let me go to the audience, and we'll do an audience poll around global trend number one, which is, so we want the audience to rate 1 to 10 in terms of likelihood to happen, 1 being least likely and 10 being most likely. Let's go to the audience poll, which is below in your screen. Just scroll it down and go trend number 1. Remote work is here to stay with a globally distributed workforce. Weichun, what would you pick? Is it 1, 3, 5, 7, or 10?
10.
10. Okay. 10. Okay. Catherine, what number would you pick?
5.
5. Okay. Rohit?
30.
Okay.
3.
And Nelly, 3. Rohit said 3.
5.
Okay. All right. I'm hearing a lot of voices. So, okay, let's go to the poll. And what does the poll say, Weichun, here? 10. Wow. Okay, we have an audience that really believes that remote work is here to stay. And Rohit, I'll be interested to hear your views on this, because you were behind Oyo Life, Oyo Workspaces, and you were CEO of the new real estate businesses. So did you answer 3 just now, Rohit?
Yes.
Okay. That's
So let me
interesting.
explain why.
Yeah.
Let me explain why.
Yeah.
Because look, I think this answer is not as a business leader, but as a citizen, global citizen. I think when we talk about work from home, we forget the person who's selling fruits on the street. We forget the car mechanic who has to be out there and actually fix the car. So it's a very narrow concept that we look at companies which have like offices and type of workforce which can work from home. Like if I look at India and the workforce, 95% of people have to go out there and do something to earn their daily living. 95%. So in that sense, I do think work from home is a concept which will accelerate in 2 to 3 or 4% of working population, but will not be a reality for the 90%.
Yeah. Again, it's like
Right?
this global
So the
local
world,
divide, right? It works in some markets and it doesn't work universally across.
yeah, it's not just global. It is for, even in a New York street, somebody who's selling a hot dog in Manhattan has to set up the shop and sell hot dog.
Oh, I miss
They don't
those
have the
hot
luxury
dogs.
of working from home. So in the near term, yes, we will see a lot of people actually trying to operate remotely, but the world physically needs to be out there. And when the pandemic subsides, we will see a very sharp reversion also, because people are just tired of being at home, right? Nobody enjoys being at home beyond a point.
Yeah, we've certainly
So
seen, I think, like a change in sentiment in markets where people have been allowed to go back to the office and people have been allowed to go to events, So we're definitely seeing people coming out and wanting to be with people in markets where that's allowed. Okay, great. So let's go to part 3, the last leg of our road trip here, which is global, local, which way forward. And I want to know what future you see for your company. So Weichun, you said basically you were founded in 2015, and KKday wanted to be the first consumer global brand out of Taiwan. That was your aspiration, right? So how far back do you think has COVID set back this aspiration? And then secondly, how has this period made you think about global, local?
I think technology definitely help us to solve that questions. Um, Ironically, for our segment, because it's so fragmented, there was no standardized system. Unlike hotels, we sell everything from tickets to a ski tour, right? So I think this is actually the first time we have suppliers coming to us directly and asking for us for solutions. So we have acquired a ridiculous amount of suppliers during this period of time. We expand into various new verticals that we didn't think of before. So in a way, when you can truly control work with your suppliers on a local level, that's when you can go global. So one example will be all the local product that we develop now, we expected to sell it to travelers around the world. So whatever I develop for Singaporean family now, I can sell it to family from Hong Kong, family from Taiwan. So I'm actually quite excited about
The future.
the future
So,
when
so
the borders
basically,
open.
you will come out of this with a very, very strong supply. And I see two trends in tours and activities. One is that sort of enterprise tech, as you say, suppliers all coming and say, okay, this is the best time for me to optimize
Exactly.
my processes. So coming to you for solutions. And then the other one, which is interesting, is Get Your Guide, actually acquiring a physical tour operator. Is that going to be in your future? Like, where do you see KKday growing?
So that was actually one of our main focus pre-COVID. Uh, before COVID, we actually realized that a lot of small and medium suppliers couldn't meet our or the modern travelers' demand, right? They have been doing the same thing for the past 20 years. They don't have data. They don't know their customer firsthand, which is why we collect all that, design our own itinerary, and give it to our suppliers and make them run the same thing. In a way, it's almost like rolling out McDonald's across the world, right? It's different, but at the same time, you feel unsure. We were actually quite aligned on that strategy,
Okay.
and we do expect this to be, be our main focus again once the travel returns.
So you would buy a tour operator, a physical tour operator? You could consider that?
We could consider that.
Okay.
And also, a lot of people leave the travel industry during the past years. So that means when the demand returns, it will be extremely difficult to find the talent.
All right. Okay. So Rohit, let's come to you and say, what one lesson have you learned, during this period about the global local interplay? I mean, the amount of funds that you've raised puts pressure on you to scale. So can you balance your global scale? You need to do that with the local execution.
Yeah. So I think I'll go back to the same answer, because when we raised funds and we operate in different markets, our business has been local from the very beginning, right? Except in Europe, where there's some inter-country movements that happen in the homes business. All our markets, there's a very deep local business. So to the extent that those markets have some kind of restriction going on, it impacts, but beyond that, it doesn't impact. In fact, the funds that we have on the balance sheet actually probably gives us a lot more strength to see this through. So in a way, it's a good thing.
Okay, so wherever you have OYO presence, I mean, there was a time when you went into China, you went into US, you bought a Hard Rock hotel in Las Vegas, if I remember. So now what you're saying is where the markets that you're in, you're just going to really go down much more local and deeper.
Yeah, just a correction, we never bought the
You
hotel in
didn't?
Vegas.
Okay.
It's a good opportunity to clarify. That's a fund which bought it. OYO is the operator which runs the hotel.
All right. Thank you for that clarification, Rohit. Okay, Catherine, so let's talk about your new campaign, with It Matters Who You Travel With, right? So you want to be the companion. You need to be like, somebody's buddy throughout the way. How can a global brand like this promise play out in a fragmented market like Asia?
Yeah, good question. So Asian market is fragmented, but what we've also learned from our research of nearly 20,000 travelers across our 9 countries is they're looking for very similar things. The results are actually quite astonishing. 83% of the Asian travelers that we research said that they value efficiency, right? So they are seeking for flexibility and simplicity post-COVID. So going forward, we're actually focusing on 3 key areas. One, offering them the convenience that they want. They love the breadth and depth of the offering that we've given them, and they would love for it to be simpler and more transparent for them. Secondly, we will aim to support them from start to finish. Post-COVID, there are definitely a lot more uncertainty, and they want someone to be able to help them and support them through the entire travel with confidence, so they can actually enjoy the traveling itself. Last but not least, I think value for money is always important, and who doesn't want a good deal, right? So every trip that they book with us, we are aiming to unlock more value for them, so they can actually spend the money to do something they love on the trip as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. It seems like you're going to become like almost what the traditional travel agency, in the past was, right? Which would be to hold your hand from beginning to the end of the journey. So, it's like, online travel has kind of come full circle. Okay, Nelly, interesting. We read, there's talk of Traveloka going for a spec listing with a 5 billion valuation. That's double Bhutan's GDP, actually. So how is Traveloka thinking about its future? How are you thinking about the future?
Yeah, I'm not here to comment about the SPAC listing, but what I can share with you, again, we are very excited and optimistic about the future. We will continue to grow our three core pillars, actually, travel, financial, and local services. Those are the three pillars. And beyond travel, actually, we see ourselves as Southeast Asia lifestyle super app. So our mission would be more in empowering people how to enjoy the new experiences around the world. So that's actually where we will strive upon. We'll keep enhancing and more completing our services to make sure that we give everything the customer need to explore the world on a single platform. Think from transportations like the flights, trains, and all, to accommodations, attractions, eateries, insurances, financial services. So I think it's more like the complete set of a lifestyle super app.
Okay, lifestyle super app. It seems to be only a thing in Asia somehow. That's quite unique to Asia, isn't it? That we love to have everything in one place. And so let's go to rapid fire, and we're going to wrap up our panel. So very quickly, the one thing I wish will change after COVID is
Having a party with more than 8 people.
having a party with more than 8 people. Okay, Catherine.
Well, I hope there will not be any cancellation fee anymore. I love free cancellation during COVID.
Okay, Nelly.
Higher accommodation online booking penetration.
Okay, and Rohit.
I think climate change, because this is the first time the human race actually experimented with shutting everything down for a few months and seeing the impact on climate. That kind of experiment would never have been possible. So I think it will lead to a lot more emphasis on sustainability.
Okay, so given that we're going to be staying in the local market for quite a while, however optimistic we are, so your advice to the audience, like if you haven't done this yet to win in the local market, you must
Upgrade your system.
upgrade your system. Okay, Catherine?
Use Expedia.
Sorry, can you say that?
Use Expedia.
Okay. Oh, come on, Catherine. You can do better than that. Okay, Nelly.
Relate to local audience, know what's trending.
Okay, and Rohit.
Just believe there are a million use cases for locals. So we have people watching soccer games, staying just outside their families for a weekend, so many things.
All right, okay. So, you talked about the greatest experiment for climate change, and I want to bring in the extinction story, right? Since we talk about AC/DC and all that. So the dodo was extinct by 1681. T-Rex disappeared 65 million years ago. Which aspect of travel will become extinct after COVID?
Physical tickets.
Physical tickets, okay. Catherine?
I was going to say the same, safety environment.
Okay. Rohit?
The walk-in customer. Everyone will book digitally.
Okay, and Nelly?
Not extinct, but less business travel.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. We're going to get into that in one of our polling later on. Thank you, Weichun, for joining me in the studio in Singapore. It's great to have you. And Rohit, thank you so much. Stay safe in New Delhi. Catherine, I will see you in Hong Kong when that bubble opens. And Nelly, thank you so much. Terima kasih. Thank you for joining us.